Well, I got to say, Totally Killer was an absolute blast from start to finish. I'm a
So much.
big fan of the slasher genre, and it just fits so nicely in there. Now, I know that outside of Beef and I think Jalen versus the World, you haven't really done film. You've done mostly TV series. So, what was it like, making that transition towards a feature length project like this from the editor's chair?
It was awesome. I mean, I've been hoping to get the opportunity to do features for a little while, and have had some opportunities, but they're always like, oh, we don't see a feature that you've done before. That always becomes a sticking point. So um, I have worked with Notch for almost a decade. And so was so psyched when she, hit me up to help her out on this one. Um, and, I'm also a big fan of slashers and horror stuff. So it was cool to get to explore that whole realm when I have done a fair amount of comedy. Um, and also it was just cool as far as, TV, you're kind of on a schedule that's things have to be on air. So with a feature, it was nice to actually be able to explore and rework things and really hone stuff uh, and get to, give it a couple tries as opposed to just like, this seems pretty good. Now let's put it on the air for all time. So that was pretty cool.
Now, with that established relationship you had with Nanachka, did you get the chance to, or and the additional, development time, did you get the chance to be on set and sort of help block out certain shots with her and everything from an editor's perspective?
On other projects with her, I have sometimes been on set. This was actually shot in Vancouver, and I was actually editing here in my house, which is this virtual space that I live in. No, but so I was not on set as far as that goes. She did always, I basically, as an editor, you try to they call it keep up with camera. So basically, on Tuesday, I get Monday's footage, and I try to cut all of the stuff they shot on Monday into at least some form. So that way I can, give her a heads up if there's something that's problematic or something that's missing. And so they will, sometimes do some little pickups or do another version of something that if it wasn't working.
Is there any one scene in particular in which you especially remember having to not necessarily rework anything, but sort of gave those notes like you just said, and maybe it led to something feeling very different from when you first saw it?
It tends to be smaller things. It's like more like, hey, we might need an insert of this, or this line wasn't clear, so maybe we need them to do another pickup of that line. There's actually like a vase smash in that opening fight sequence, where which I'm trying to say, it's a little tricky to talk about this movie without spoiling it, but I'll try to talk vaguely about it. But there's a vase smash that actually was never quite clean. The thing always kind of crumbled a little ahead of time. And so I did actually mention that, and they did get a pickup, but they still had some issues with it. So there's a little bit of tricky editing around that section if you look at it again. But it sells. So
I was gonna say I didn't notice anything. So either you had a great editing job or I was not paying enough attention. So I'm gonna have to go back either way though and give it another look.
Part of editing also is knowing like where people are going to be looking and what they're going to notice and what they're not going to notice. It's not really for the people who are going to go through frame by frame. It's for knowing how people watching actively are going to be perceiving things and where you can kind of fool them and stuff if it's not quite matching. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you were a big fan of horror before coming into this, but you also, again, have that established history in comedy. So I'm curious, did you look to any specific horror films in helping sort of get that grip on when to cut and when to, make the certain edits in the more horror centric scenes versus the comedy?
Yeah, well, I definitely, rewatched Scream and checked out Happy Death Day and stuff and Freaky as far as balancing the tones. But yeah, it was kind of, I mean, when we have our horror moments, they are kind of discreet. There's not really laughs in the horror moments themselves. We do sometimes cut back to something that's funny, we'll do some parallel action. So it is about like when we go horror, we kind of go horror. And I think some people actually are surprised how much we go horror as far as the brutality of it, you know. And then yeah, I don't know. It's also just kind of playing with the rhythms of things and keeping people a little off kilter. So comedy is kind of building up tension for a release of a laugh, and horror is building it up for the release of a scare of some sort. And especially with horror, it's funny it's trying to find that time to hit them where they're not expecting it. You know, you're building to a thing, and then maybe, it's like that classic thing of building to a thing, and then it's the cat in the closet, but then they see the cat, and then the killer comes behind them. That kind of thing. So getting people when they are a little unawares.
With comedy, there's obviously, you have the established history of it. You and Nahnatchka both do. But what do you feel is the key to really nailing a joke? Do you feel it's cutting to the rest of the cast reacting to it? Do you feel it's letting it linger on the person who maybe is the butt of the joke or the target of the joke in that situation? What do you feel is the key for landing a joke in the editing chair?
I mean, I think that's a very acute question. Yeah, I mean, it does obviously vary based on the joke and what's the funny thing at hand, but it is reaction shots are often very key to indicating to people, oh yeah, something funny just happened, or something, people are confused by the behavior of this person or that person. Obviously in this film, we get a lot of ground from Jamie reacting to the various incorrectness of the 80s and people's 80s behavior. Sometimes she explicitly comments, sometimes it's just a reaction or a blank stare. Actually once or twice we did have a line, and we were like, I think we could just have her react as opposed to having to have her say something, it varies. It varies based on the joke, but I do think that reactions are a key to comedy a lot of the time.
Is there any joke or any general sequence you remember from this film being maybe the funniest to help put together from the editing chair?
I mean, it's always fun to put together stuff with Randall Park. I got to work, on Fresh Off the Boat with him and Nahnatchka Khan. I actually worked on a show that was like an Adult Swim show before Fresh Off the Boat with Randall as well. So, he's always great at improv, and also like they'll throw lines and he'll just run with it. So it is always, I do like with comedy when I get to kind of find all these little funny pieces and figure out how to make them into a coherent whole, with so that you do that with like a lot of improv stuff. So, Randall was really great, and his deputy also, I think, gets a little, that guy stepped on a set with Randall Park, who's a bit of a comedy all-star, and, played ball. So it was always fun to put stuff together with him. The whole DNA runner, or the whole little DNA gag in the middle there was super fun. And I think there was only one or two takes where Randall did that bit where he says DMA instead of DNA, because he clearly has no idea what she's talking about. So that stuff's always fun to get to put together.
Randall's a comic genius. He truly is. And also, after Shortcomings, he is definitely primed to become a directing genius. So
I know. Yeah, I love Shortcomings as well. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But I loved him in this movie as well. Now, one of the things I find really interesting as well is the way that you cut between the younger counterpart, or the younger version of a character, to the older version of a character when Jamie first comes across them. There have been so many times where it is just the cut, but I found this an interesting sort of, the way it transitions to be a far more interesting one than most movies do. Whose idea was it to take that approach? Was that yours? Was that Nahnatchka's? How did that come about?
Well, that's actually, so when we're doing those like warps between the 80s version and the 2023 version of the characters, is that what you're asking about? Well, so originally there was only one. It was originally when you see the three, the principal, the gym teacher and the cop and Kara the cop lined up. That was originally the only one that I think was like actually scripted, because I think those were the slightly smaller characters that that people might not have remembered having only seen them in one other scene. So it was to flag that. But somewhere along the line, we decided to start doing it, for each character as we saw them. I initially had to actually, I mean, this is kind of apropos of what I'm talking about, but I actually kind of had to go a little pixely and then get go a little like 8-bit and then come back and have kind of some Atari-ish kind of sounds. And then we kind of decided that was a little too gaggy, a little too on the nose. And actually, my assistant editor, Andrew Chrisman, is really good at mocking up visual effects and helping do a lot of the sound design, at least the preliminary stuff. And he was like, "Hey, I actually have like a bunch of different transitions I can play around with." And so he came forward with like 4 or 5 options, and we all loved the one that pretty much is exactly what we ended up using.
Yeah, the warp effect. I'm glad that you expanded it to everybody else, because I mean, even when we see Jamie's mom, it makes it all the more emotional of stakes for her. So that's great.
And we also had that moment with when Blake comes out of the pool and we flash from him drying himself out next to the pool to her dad in the Ab t-shirt, the Zac Efron shirt. So that was pretty awesome to get to do.
That was a great bit. I loved it. Now, one of the sequences that I also wanted to highlight was the Gravitron sequence, because that is such it's an incredible one, truly. I mean, the practical nature of it mixed with the visual effects is incredible to watch. But, from the editor's perspective, what was it like putting that sequence together when you saw it on the page, when you saw the dailies? What was it like, knowing the ambition that Ninotchka was going for with this?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the few sequences that was because this whole thing was shot in like 30 days. And I think they shot that over 3 days. So that was one of the, definitely one of the bigger sequences to have all these pieces put together. And it was a process all along. I actually it was great to build that tension as the killer is stalking Pam along the wall and Jamie crawling and eke every little bit of tension that we could out of that. And then, we had a version of the sequence at a certain point, and then that's one of the sequences where we got to kind of really go over and over and over and figure out ways to enhance it gradually. So, one of the things was that we gradually started adding some camera shake to some of the shots so that you're feeling that the trick was that this machine is going really, really fast where you're going to stick to the wall, but then it goes even faster and faster and faster and faster. So it was hard to how to sell that to the audience. So, we gradually added some camera shake that increases as the scene goes on. Again, my assistant editor, Andrew, did a great job mocking up the sound. And then our sound team, Yossi Tegelman and Marty Humphrey and Rob Marshall, they were our mixers. And Yossi did the sound design, did a great job of kind of adding layer upon layer. So you're feeling the speed, and you also gradually start hearing metal stress sounds, like the whole thing is grinding. And then actually, the executives actually had notes that were like, maybe we actually didn't see this time device in this scene. And they were like, maybe we should cut to it. So we actually kind of mocked up a shot with some other elements that we had, where you see the device and you see it sparking and spitting and get the sense that it's gradually coming up to speed and going to kick in. And also we added the exteriors of the Gravitron as well.
Well, it's an incredible mesh of collaboration then, because like I said, that sequence is so exciting to watch.
That's awesome.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to whodunit slashers like this, obviously the reveal is a big thing,
Right.
and there's so many different ways that a director can shoot it, an editor can edit it. So when you were putting it together, I know you mentioned you looked to like Scream and Happy Death Day and stuff like that earlier, but what was your thought process when putting together the scene of the reveal? Of whether to focus on the reaction before we see the face, or to show the face and then the reaction. What was your process putting that together?
I actually, I said to Notch, like, I think we cut to the killer lying there once or twice before the reveal, because I wanted to at least somewhat play the forever meme. I mean, not the meme, but the trope of he's not really dead, he's going to hop up. So I wanted to play with that tension a little bit. And then the reveal, we want to just we want to see the person, and then everybody see all the reactions, because nobody would have ever expected that this was the character who was the killer. And then you want to see that it's kind of landing with Marissa's character a little bit more, because she kind of starts putting the pieces together about why he's hunting them. I guess that's more or less the thinking that went into it. We did add a couple little whispery sounds, little ghosty sounds under the reveal. That was a day where they were shooting so much stuff trying to get through that location. So it was, sometimes with a lot of these things, it's trying to figure out how, with what you have, to build those moments actually. I'm glad that it's working,
I found myself mostly surprised. They were definitely a suspect of mine, but
yeah.
they were not my top. So
okay, you did have them on the list. All right.
I did, but kudos to you and Notch and everybody for still keeping it a nice mystery.
I mean, in that he was a character in the movie, he's got to be a suspect, I guess, but
that's also how these whodunit slashers go. Everybody's a suspect. It's
fun. It's fun because I don't know how much spoiler. I don't know if we are just assuming this is a conversation for people who have seen the movie, but I kind of enjoy that the script. I mean, when I first read the script, I was kind of guessing Killer B. I'll say that part, I guess, but this is how you kind of get to have your cake and eat it too, because you get to surprise, and then also you get to pat yourself on the back for having guessed it, at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. That's always the fun of having two killers in a slasher, is one of them's a surprise typically. Before I let you go, the movie's come out and it's getting very good reviews, which I'm very happy to see, because this movie deserves it. But what is it like for you, and having had that relationship with Notch before, and Randall, and getting to come onto this as one of your first big features, and seeing the reviews be so positive for it?
Oh, it's been awesome. I mean, even when we screened at Fantastic Fest, I was like, back from the party, having had too many drinks, and I was on Twitter and seeing that Robert Cargill gave us a shout out or something, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing all right, so yes, I am maybe reloading Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd a bit too much, but I'm definitely enjoying seeing all the love and stuff come in. I mean, horror movies can be divisive and people have their opinions, so there's definitely their naysayers, but I'm so glad that people are having a really fun ride with this, and just somebody was saying, at Halloween, it's nice when you're watching a lot of horror movies to have one that isn't as bleak as the rest. It's a nice palate cleanser before you go watch When Evil Lurks, which is also great. But yeah.
Well, between this and I don't know if you've seen it yet, but Onyx the Fortuitous and The Talisman of Souls, you got two fun ones to watch this Halloween amidst the bleak ones. So
actually, my friend did the sound on that, and I haven't seen it yet, but I want to. Yeah.
I highly recommend. I did interviews for that one, and it is so much fun. It's another kind of like this, another nice genre mix and some 80s throwback in there. So awesome. I highly recommend it. But either way, though, Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. I love this movie. It was a blast chatting with you, and I can't wait to keep spreading the word about it.
Oh, thanks so much, man. Thanks for your time, and I'm glad you had fun with it.